I got a message from Byju that this is Byju Ravindran and we would like to chat. So our first conversation was so they were expecting that offline business, multiple centers, COVID situation must be going through a challenging time. But when we mentioned, I said we've completely pivoted to online. We had a platform. We've been doing it for the last 10 years and we are comfortable. And in fact, we are growing. So that was, sort of a surprise, a pleasant surprise to them that in this situation, how are you growing? I said, there's a brand pull, there's quality, and we are standing to our commitment of, we're continuing the education. We have not put a stop to it. And this is the best quality lectures in test prep that are available right now and has been made available to all students now. So that's when they said that, let's bring in the forces together. You are the king of offline and, we are leading in the online side. Why don't we put 1 and 1 together and make it 11? So I think that was the first level of discussion. I said, okay, it's probably a partnership or something. But then in the subsequent call, they made it clear that, we're looking for 100% acquisition.
When you took it back to the board and the investors, what was the reaction at that point?
No, I didn't take that conversation that seriously. I said, okay, fine, what do you say? He gave me a number which was quite close to slightly higher than the Blackstone transaction, which is $500 million. So I said, no, we are not interested. Thank you so much. So we have a journey and we are on that journey. So it was not even a discussion that, I could have taken to anyone. So when I think they came back and they sort of bettered that number by a few crores. And then I said, no, this is not going to work for us. And we are good. We are fine. Our money needs are sorted. We just had a Blackstone round and business does not need it. And online we have transitioned. So we will do this story. And we have done the Merit Nation acquisition. So we have a platform, tech team also. So we are, sorted right now. So we don't need it. So, but then there was a radio silence for about a month, 2 months. And then they came back that, have you thought about it? I said, we made it clear that, it's not happening. So then they threw another number, which is a decent number. They said, this is not going to work for us. We're not looking to sell. It's our company and we want to go with the current plans that we have. So I think it kept happening back and forth. Then they brought in a banker in the middle. So the banker conversation started. And then we reached a point where they gave us a number and that sounded like a credible number. It was 950 million. And then that number we sort of internally discussed that, is it something that we can go with? And then as a family, we thought that, we are right in the middle of COVID. I don't know what's going to happen. And so, let's look at this number and let's look at an upside so that we continue to remain involved and continue to build this business as a joint force. And that's where the 70-30 transaction was conceptualized for a 100% acquisition.
And Byju was okay with that kind of a structure at that time?
No, they had wanted
full and complete ownership, I suspect.
No, they wanted full ownership.
Yeah.
And they wanted more equity, lesser cash, of course. But we insisted on the 70%.
A lot has been written about Aakash and Byju and what happened subsequently, because Byju went through its own set of turbulence a year or so into this acquisition. At that point, how were you seeing Aakash? Because there were at one time discussions about the family coming back into the business to run it. So there was a lot of, from the outside and seemed like a lot of discussions were happening. What was playing out in that time? And to that I want to, how should a promoter family see a company post it's been acquired by a third party?
So I think a lot of things there. Post acquisition, since it was a 100% acquisition, So there was certain set of rights we felt that we should have retained, which at the time of transaction we didn't feel that we would need, because we were going in with a very, very clean, pure, and a positive intent to make a impact, that we wanted to do it as a joint force.
Sure.
And I still say that he had a great opportunity. The kind of brands and the money that he had raised could have sort of scripted a very different education conglomerate for India, which hasn't been done anywhere in the world. So they completely missed that opportunity. So as promoter, we were, I think the first year was fine, and by the time this transaction happened, we had brought in a professional CEO also. So we had done fair amount of transition in that 1 year after the acquisition. But as a promoter, we felt that it's very hard to keep check of a professional's aspiration in a situation like this, when there is unquestionable amount of money that is flowing in, and your objective is completely linked to sales and growth and outward looking growth strategy, and I'm not looking at how you're controlling your costs, how you're controlling your quality, what kind of profitability matrices are you tracking. So we felt that in fact it was quite surprising. So after acquisition, it suddenly dawned on us that we felt that we've left a very good system, and we realized that the moment we step out, people have just adjusted the system to their likes and dislikes, and that's where we realized that any good thing which and we've known it, takes years to build it, but to spoil it, it doesn't take much. And to spoil it, people don't really spoil it by one or two actions. I think it's the mindset and the intent with which the team start to work. If you, instead of looking into the interest of the student, if you start looking into the interest of what is the incentive for me for this year, so your actions will be aligned to those incentives rather than what's good for the company or the student. So that transition and shift we saw in the people, and not to blame anyone, but if you don't have a higher order thinking promoter, who's there as a guiding light, as a self-correction mechanism, sitting in front of you and checking you and making you accountable, responsible, people do go awry, and that's probably what happened. And as a result, the team felt the pressure, and obviously on the Byju side, they were losing money and they needed money, and then they started taking money from their good assets, including Aakash. So that led more pressure on the Aakash business, and as a result, people became more conservative to their own interests rather than the company. That ye to kharab hone wala hai, I might as well save myself. So I think that philosophy we felt seeped into the minds of some people.
And at which point did you feel that you're open to sort of returning to the business? Because there was some, in a way, equity that you already had in the company by virtue of the stock swap that had happened. So was that a serious discussion?
So we were supposed to swap our equity with the Byju equity, which did not happen because Byju on his side, there was a lot of I would say breaches of the commitments that had to be done did not happen because of their rounds not getting cleared, and their financial obligations and governance not getting completed, which were basic guarantees that they had taken. So we had to stop that conversion, and we sat with our equity, and we still do. But at that time, I think so Byju was in control of the company, and they were running the organization as they deemed fit. When I say they deemed fit, I mean they deemed fit for TNL, which is Think and Learn, which is Byju's parent company. So if that would mean sort of disturbing the other assets, they would go ahead and do that because they believed, and anybody would, that you keep the parent alive, the children will live. So I think that's the philosophy that they went on with, and that resulted in a lot of pressure and stress on the Aakash business. And as a result, some of the top executives left also the organization, and I think that's where the company felt the need that can we look at bringing new leadership, or should we call Aakash back into the business? And I think that was the discussion to your question started out.